Hello students, hopefully you are having an amazing day. I'm Naeem Amin Bhatti and today we are going to discuss the themes of the novel Jane Eyre. The very first theme is family. The main quest in Jane Eyre is Jane's search for family, for a sense of the belonging and love. However, this search constantly tempered by the Jane's need for independence. She begins the novel as an unloved orphan who is almost obsessed with the finding the love each and everywhere. We talk about the second theme, that is the fire and ice. The motives of fire and ice are permeate the novel from the start to finish. Fire is present as positive, creative, loving, and while ice is seen as destructive, negative, and hateful things. Bronte highlights this dichotomy by associating and thinking that the distinct elements with the particular characters. The cruel or detached characters, such as Mrs. Reed and St. John, and associated with the ice, while the warmer characters, such as Jane, Miss Temple, and Mr. Rochester, are linked with the fire. We talk about its third theme, that is the religion. Jane receives the three different models of the Christianity throughout the novel, all of which she rejects either partly or completely before finding her own way. And the social position is also another theme. The Bronte uses the novel of express the critique of Victorian class differences. Jane is consistently poor individual with the wealthy environment, particularly with the Reeds and the Thornfield. Her poverty creates the numerous obstacles for her and her pursuit of happiness, including the personal insecurity and denial of opportunities. So these social positions always matter in the novel Jane Eyre. The beautiful Miss Ingram's higher social standings, for instance, makes her Jane's main competitor for Mr. Rochester's love, even though Jane is far superior in terms of intellectual thoughts and the character. Gothic elements are also one of the themes and motifs of this novel. Bronte uses many of the elements of the Gothic literary tradition to create a sense of suspense and drama in this novel. First of all, she employs the Gothic techniques in order to set the stage for the narrative. The majority of the events in the novel takes place within the gloomy mansions, Thornfield Manor, and also the Morton House with the secret chambers in the mysterious demonic laugh belonging to the mad women in the attic. And Bronte also evokes a sense to the supernatural, incorporating the terrifying ghost of Mr. Reed in the Red Room and creating a sort of telephone connection between Jane and Mr. Rochester. If we talk about the symbolism in the novel Jane Eyre, we can see that the Red Room is a type of symbol, and the Red Room is Jane's fear of her own anger and her own power. In the early 1800s, women were expected to be submissive and gentle creatures. The model of the angel in the house and ideal of feminist purity and goodness prevailed throughout the much of the 19th century novel. So this is the room where the young Jane is confined with her aunt, Mrs. Reed, who raises the orphan child to the age of 10, punishes her, and when she punishes her, and she was locked into the Red Room. Eyes are the symbol in the Jane Eyre. Jane is especially attracted to Mr. Rochester due to his eyes, and he has black and brilliant eyes, which symbolizes his temper and power. After Mr. Rochester loses his eyesight in the fire, Jane becomes his eyes. Metaphysically and metaphorically, Jane now holds the position of mastery. Bertha has bloodshot eyes that match her violent nature, and the novel also emphasizes the mind's eyes and active imagination. Food also has been used as the symbol in this particular novel. For instance, the lack of food at Lowood reveals the school's cruelty and religious hypocrisy. Miss Temple, at the other hand, provides food and a compassionate and generous. Food has religious significance in the novel as well. Physical hunger represents the deeper spiritual craving. Portraits and pictures are described in this novel's scenery pretty much way. Though the dreams are important, but through the dreams and drawings, Jane's visualization and her deepest feelings has been described. Jane's portfolio contains the pictures that symbolizes her life. Portraits can also stand for people's characters. Jane compares her portraits of herself and Blanche Ingram. We talk about feminism in the Jane Eyre, we can see that the women's rights had been advocated in the Jane Eyre. She pretty much talks about the life of a woman and her due rights. And in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, the main character Jane Eyre explores the depth at which women may act in society and finds her own boundaries in the Victorian England as well. Along with the notions of feminism often follow the subjects of the class distinctions and boundaries, etc. We talk about the mad women in the attics. She actually symbolizes and describes us that how the women can get their due rights if they be and if they do not pretend to be the psychological person but be to wise one. And Bertha becomes the symbol of the female characters in English fiction, victims of society whose stories are forced to silence and told uniquely with the male point of view. And at this stage, we are all ready to try to reread the Bertha story from the post colonial perspective. The feminist critique, we can see that women education is all important nowadays, but it was also given importance in the Victorian age also. But the women who were having their own education was protesting for having the votes right and riding the bicycle, etc. They were not thought to be the good women, but nowadays the women think that they should have their own due rights. So that was a prejudice at that time which was made against the women, and it advocates the feminism, and this advocacy leads us towards the feminism, and we have to give the due rights to the women. I dream of a day when everyone will have access to education and acknowledge whatever their job or station in life. Every person should be allowed to grow in intellectually and morally through the education. That was the quotation by Jane Eyre. If we conclude this session, all the previous two lectures and this lecture, so this is the conclusion of the three lectures, that Charlotte Bronte gives a new concept of marriage in the novel. Jane Eyre is quite independent in deciding her future, and Rochester, she rejects him after knowing about his first wife and later accepts him without any compulsion. And she is also economically independent now. So, unlike the other women at that time, she does not depend on anyone and earns her livelihood. And throughout the novel, Charlotte Bronte stresses on the three things: the rights for the children, the right to the occupation for women, and the right of governnesses. So, morality and intellectual thoughts transcends the divisions between the genders. So, both of the men and women are subject to the same vices and virtues. Therefore, Bronte agrees and argues the men and the women should be subject to the same advantages of education, so as both genders may exercise their minds and maintain themselves morally. We will conclude our lecture with the quotation from Charlotte Bronte that I'm not a bird and no net in earth's me. So I'm free human being with an independent will. That was the quotation from Charlotte Bronte, and it is written in the Jane Eyre, which is an autobiographical novel by her, and uh, its that's it from today's lecture, and I think this novel has been covered up with all the three lectures, important lectures. Until the next lecture, it's goodbye from me.